Hello all, welcome to Naresh IT. This is Vikram. So we are just done with various concepts of Angular framework. Today we are going to see what are the best practices we can use to create an AngularJS application. So first we need to, when we are deciding to opt Angular framework for our application, first we need to understand how many modules we can divide our application into. Okay, assume that, if your application is small, you can have only one module, you don't have any kind of problem in that. But if your application is very huge, assume that I'm just creating an ERP, enterprise resource planning. So it's one of the biggest applications probably we can see. So in this ERP we will have different kinds of modules. Let us take a few modules in that. So the first one is master module, okay, where we can able to configure the master information of our application. The second one is admin module, where the users or some other things can be configured. Okay, the third one is SCM module, supply chain management. The fourth one is sales module, where before SCM it's better we will put CRM module, okay, customer relation manager, where the quotations can be created, and SCM, through SCM module we can able to handle the materials and everything. Then we can have the production module. Okay, so here these are the few modules which we are discussing, where each and every module will have a huge huge number of sublinks and submodules, and each and every module will have a lot of services and controllers and views together. So in that particular case, combining all these implementations in one module is not recommended. Okay, so what we can do is, you can create one parent module, something like ERP you can make it, okay, and to that particular parent module you can create each and every module as a sub module. Okay, so let me make it as, for ERP I just made it as ERP app assume. Otherwise you can make any kind of something like Naresh ERP app. In that that is my main module, okay, and remaining all of my sub modules, okay, something like master. So I'm just making the master as master app, or master module also you can make. In the similar way, admin app, SCM app, CRM app, production app, sales app. How many modules you have? For each and every module, you just create a separate module name for your Angular as your Angular framework. Okay, now the master app module can be created using Angular dot module master app, and if you want to make any other modules as a dependency to this master app, you can make it, there is no problem. Okay, in the similar way, admin app, then SCM app, then CRM app, then production app, then sales app. So here you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are my different modules, and I have one main module called Naresh ERP. Okay, now what I can do is, all these modules I can able to provide as a dependency to my Naresh app, something like module ERP, then first one master app, second one admin app, third one SCM app, fourth one CRM app, then production app. Okay, so you can see here total we have 6 modules: master app, admin app, SCM app, CRM app, production app, and sales app. All these sub modules, okay, are provided as the dependencies to our Naresh ERP app, like this. Okay, now when I am binding we need to bind only one module into our application using -app directive, that is our Naresh ERP app. So when the Naresh ERP app is loaded, all the dependency apps or all the dependency modules is also loaded. Okay, so what is the advantage we will get when we are creating our application into multiple modules? Well, first thing is we can separate the implementations. Okay, separate the implementations, a kind of like one module related information we might require in other modules, but we cannot give guarantee that it's always happens. Okay, so if one module is one module information is not required by other modules, we can separate them. Clearly we can separate them, and we can put that set of that particular module related set of implementations at one place. Okay, and most of the times as a team when we are working, the modules can be developed individually or parallelly, we can say. So first we will develop the independent modules, then we will plan to go with dependency modules. Okay, so here the parallel development also can be possible when we are making our modules as independent. Clear? Then the third one. So here when it comes to the dependencies, you will get a question, okay, if I have the dependencies, if a module is depending on other modules, then what we can do? Well, like how I am just providing the dependency of a specific module to the main module, I mean all the modules to the main module, in the similar way you can able to make other application, other module dependencies to some other module. Okay, so any module can be provided as a dependency to your module, there is no problem at all. Understand, no? So in this way we can able to integrate the modules together, and if you want to make use of any of the reusable components in one of a specific module into other module, that also can be utilized. Okay, this is primarily we need to focus when we are planning to create our application. Okay, the second one, most of the times we already know that we have three types of services: factory, service and provider. Okay, you'll get a question, which one is the best option out of these three mechanisms? Well, factory is a kind of simple mechanism. Okay, so anyway, whatever the mechanism you are using, you no need to create the objects will be created by Angular framework only. You need to simply understand how the dependencies can be provided. So when it comes to the factory, we understood that factory will return a JSON object. That means it's not creating an explicit object using new operator. So when if you are planning to create any object in JavaScript, what we will do is generally somewhere obj is equals to new function, like this. Okay, but when it comes to factories, we can able to use object dot create, okay, that particular JSON object, like this we can do. Clear? Because the factory service, what it is doing is it is returning a JSON object. That object is going to be created something like this. Internally Angular is having some mechanism, same kind of create only. It is using that particular create method to creation of object, and it is not explicitly creating an object using new operator. Okay, so it is a kind of very easiest process when you are having, if you want to create a kind of functions as a microservices or services, it's better to go with factory. Okay, so what about the services? Well, you have the options, but rather than services, my suggestion is go with factory, because services, the implementation itself, you can see there we are using this operator prefixing to each and every property which you want to access outside of the service, like this dot that particular function name, or this dot that particular reference name, when if you want to persist any data. So when the service object is created by Angular framework, it is using internally the new operator explicitly. Okay, so rather my option, so the first option is something like service, okay, which are not interested when it comes to AngularJS. The second option is JSON object, which is very easy and very handy also. So my suggestion is go with the second option, JSON object, which we can able to create using factory. Okay, this also you can use, there is no problem, but comparing to this, the second option is the easiest one. So I'm always suggesting you to use factory while you're creating a AngularJS services. Okay, now what about the provider? Provider is a kind of it will do some kind of hectic process for you. Okay, so if you want to create any service as a provider, first you need to understand whether the service requires any pre-configurations. So we already used ng-route module. Okay, so when it comes to single page applications, if you want to perform, I mean, if the single page applications requires the information, means like views, controllers and routes. Okay, that information, it should be available with your AngularJS application before loading of your application. Okay, if that particular information is not available, then Angular can't able to understand what should happen or how it should go with that specific routing. Okay, so what is, we just created $route service as a provider, clear, and that particular provider service we are using in the config method, clear, and on that route provider service we are using a when method and we are configuring that data. Okay. Now that particular provider service, whatever the data provided by the end user, I mean the developer, that data can be utilized by ng-route module internally and it will create the routes dynamically fresh. Okay. So if you want to configure something like this, if your application requires some configuration related, I mean some predefined configuration which can be shareable, okay, across the services. If you want to share that kind of information across the services, there we can use provider implementations. I mean we can able to create a kind of service using provider mechanism. Okay, this is another thing we need to follow when we are planning for AngularJS application. The next one, always use dependency injection. Okay, so the dependency injection is of I mean when it comes to AngularJS is of three types. Okay, the first one is implicit. Okay, the second one is okay, inline annotation. The third one is inject annotation. Okay, so implicit, here the dependency injections will be utilized, but we don't need to provide any kind of annotations. Okay, like what happens is, assume that I have a controller, otherwise a service also you can take. I am just making it as a controller. The controller is some abcctrl. Okay, I am just creating a function injecting $scope. Okay, so here I have one dependency which I am injecting into that particular controller is $scope. Okay, and if you want to put another service as a dependency or injection, you can do like that. There is no problem. Okay, but it's when we are not making any kind of minifications, there is no problem, because Angular can able to easily pick that particular understanding which object need to be injected. Okay, but if assume that if you are making your controller minification, so the inner implementation how it will be done, that we will see, that we don't require as of now. Only I am discussing about the dependency injection. Okay, so once the application is like minified, okay, minification means it's compression of your JavaScript code. Okay, it will be turned into something like this, UT. Okay, now the implementation, our original implementation is like this. After minification it will look like this, because what it will do is it will simply compress our programming into I mean when something like a smaller code. Okay, how it will compress, that we need to understand. First thing is, it will remove all the spaces, trailing spaces or new lines, blah blah blah, whatever the tabs we have, all those things will be removed, so that the file will turn, I mean entire code of your application will turn into a single line. That is first requirement. So obviously what happens when your size, I mean when these kind of contents like which are not required, spaces, tabs, new lines and everything, okay, obviously the file size will be decreased. Okay, in that way the first part of the compression will done. Second part of the compression, like so many times we will provide the comments in our application. Okay, all the comments will be removed as a second part when it is doing the minification. Clear? So all the comments, what it will do is the comments will be turned, it will identify whatever the comments we just provided, and the minification tool will remove all the comments. So, in that way what it will happen is it can able to minify, I mean whatever the file size again we have, that can be compressed again, okay, the size can be decreased. That is the second one. Lastly, it will identify whatever the full names we used as references or not references, most probably the parameters. Okay, all the parameters will be shortened. It will use a short form of that particular parameter representations. Okay, like this. So, here the dollar scope is turned into U and dollar HTTP is turned into T. Okay. Once all these three steps is done, then finally it will provide the output like this. Now, when AngularJS is trying to, when you are trying to load this particular controller, what Angular will say is, hey, you know that I do not know what particular service this one U. At the same time, what is the service this T. Okay. So, Angular will get confused over them. So, it can't able to understand which particular services need to be injected into our controller. For that, what we can do is this, whatever the implementation we just provided here, this is called implicit dependency injection. Instead of that, what we can do is you can provide the annotations either using inline, otherwise inject. Okay. So, I am just using the inline. Okay. So, put this after implicit, then inline, where inline the function which you are providing here. Okay. So, after providing the name of your controller, just start an array. Okay. First, you need to provide how many dependencies you want to inject. As you can see in the top, I have two dependencies, one is dollar scope, another one is dollar HTTP. So, inject dollar scope first, then inject dollar HTTP as a string. I am not providing them as objects, I am providing them as a strings here. Okay. So, let me if okay, do not get confused. So, I will just make it as a double quote, so that you will get a clear idea about that particular annotations. These are called annotations. Okay. Now, once your annotations are provided, the ending of your controller implementation, you can provide your function like this. So, first you just provide the annotations, like whatever the services you there, those services you can able to inject like this as a strings, then you can provide the implementation of your function. So, here now you can able to easily understand that dollar scope injecting this particular object is injecting into dollar scope and dollar HTTP object is injecting in place of HTTP. If you want to change these particular names here, now if you want to provide U comma H or U comma T here, now Angular still can able to understand what exactly U and what exactly T is. Okay. U represents the index of dollar scope and T represents the index of your dollar HTTP. Okay. This is called inline annotation in dependency injection. The last one is inject annotation. Okay. So, here what happens is, what we need to create first, just create the function. Okay. So, this particular function whatever you have with a name my CTRL FN assume. Okay. Now, to this myCTRL FN we can able to inject the annotations using dollar inject mechanism. So, myCTRL FN dot dollar inject is equals to provide a array of dependencies. So, first dependency is dollar scope, the second dependency is dollar HTTP. Okay, like this. Once you provided that particular implementation, now you can able to provide that controller function. Okay. So, ABC CTRL my CTRL FN like this. This is called inject annotation dependency injection. Okay, like this we can able to provide. So, which one is the best option out of these three? Well, the second one or third one you can use. Okay. It is based on your wish. If you want to develop the functions individually and provide the annotations like this using dollar inject, the third option is best. And from scratch, if you are developing something, I mean this is for migration, it is the best option. I mean from one particular like any other like jQuery or some other thing, if you want to migrate to AngularJS, the third option is best. Okay. From scratch, if you are developing something, the inline annotation is best. Okay. Now it's your wish which you want to pick. Okay. This is another best practice we need to follow when we are creating any AngularJS applications. Okay. So, these are my suggestions with respect to best practices. Thank you.